At 0647 on June 6, 1944, on Omaha Beach in Normandy, France, Corporal James Mitchell crouched in the surf and watched his third demolition team disappear in a column of spray and shrapnel. Another telemine, another 5 men gone. The German beach defenses were killing his engineers faster than enemy bullets. Mitchell's commanding officer, Captain Robert Hayes, was beside him shouting over the chaos. They had orders to clear a 50-meter corridor through the minefield before the next wave arrived. That was in 14 minutes. At their current rate, they would lose every man before they cleared 20 meters. The statistics were catastrophic. Of the 16 Navy combat demolition units that had landed in the first wave, 12 had taken casualties exceeding 60%. The Germans had planted an estimated 4,000 mines across the 5 landing beaches. Standard protocol required engineers to crawl forward with bayonets, probing the sand at 45-degree angles until they struck metal. Each mine took 3 to 5 minutes to locate and neutralize. The mathematics were brutal and simple. They did not have enough time. They did not have enough men. If this continued, the invasion would fail on the beach. What Captain Hayes did not know was that 100 meters to his left, a 22-year-old private from Iowa was about to solve a problem that had killed demolition experts since 1939. What Hayes also did not know was that this private had no engineering training, no explosives certification, and no business being anywhere near a minefield. His name was Thomas Becker, and in the next 6 hours his bucket trick would save an estimated 200 Allied lives and change military doctrine for the next 80 years. To understand why what Becker did was revolutionary, you need to understand what the experts had already tried and failed. The German telemine represented 5 years of lethal engineering refinement. Weighing 11 pounds and packed with 12 pounds of TNT, it required only 200 pounds of pressure to detonate. A single footstep. The Wehrmacht had buried them in staggered patterns across every invasion beach from Norway to Greece. By June of 1944, German engineers had planted an estimated 4,000 mines across the 5 Normandy landing beaches alone. 4,000 mines, each requiring 3 to 5 minutes to locate and neutralize using approved methods. The mathematics were devastating. 4,000 times 3 minutes equals 12,000 minutes. That was 200 hours. That was 8 full days to clear Omaha Beach. The invasion timetable allowed 6 hours. Allied casualties from these weapons had reached epidemic proportions. By June of 1944, the Allies had tried everything. Every method had failed. British engineers had developed the Bangalore torpedo, a long explosive tube pushed under wire obstacles. It worked brilliantly against barbed wire. Against buried mines, it was a coin flip. Sometimes it triggered sympathetic detonations. Sometimes it did not. The failure rate hovered around 40%, and every failure meant another crater, another delay, another squad of infantry pinned down by German machine guns, waiting for engineers to clear paths that might never be cleared. American forces experimented with trained dogs. The theory was elegant. Dogs could smell the explosive compounds and mark mine locations without triggering the pressure plates. In practice, the animals panicked under artillery fire. Several ran back toward their handlers with mines attached to their harnesses. The program was quietly discontinued after 3 handlers died in training accidents. The French resistance suggested using long wooden poles to probe ahead while lying flat. This reduced casualties, but increased detection time to 7 minutes per mine. At Anzio in January of 1944, this method cost the Allies an entire day's advance. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel personally studied the after-action reports and ordered his engineers to plant mines even more densely along the Atlantic Wall. In May of 1944, 1 month before D-Day, the Allied Expeditionary Force convened a special engineering conference in Portsmouth. 23 demolition experts attended. Colonel Arthur Trudeau of the United States Army Corps of Engineers chaired the meeting. Major Geoffrey Pike, the British demolition expert who had commanded mine clearance operations in North Africa, presented findings from Mediterranean campaigns. Lieutenant Colonel William Ashe brought casualty statistics from Sicily. Captain Robert McNair, who had tested experimental detection equipment at Aberdeen Proving Ground, reported that electronic mine detectors were unreliable on beaches where metal debris created false positives everywhere. The assembled experts reviewed every mine detection method in the Allied arsenal. Bangalore torpedoes, trained dogs, pole probing, metal detectors, flail tanks, which could not operate on soft sand and became stuck in surf zones. Electronic ground penetrating systems still in development that required stable platforms and clear ground. Each method was analyzed for speed, casualty rate and reliability. The numbers were grim. Bangalore torpedoes cleared mines at unpredictable rates with 40% failure rates. Dog teams had been discontinued after training accidents. Pole probing took 7 minutes per mine. Metal detectors produced too many false positives. Flail tanks were mechanically unsuitable for beach operations. No solution provided both speed and acceptable casualty rates. Their classified report, declassified in 1974, concluded with stark language. No existing technique allows for rapid mine clearance under combat conditions. Projected casualties for beach demolition units exceed 75% in the first hour of any amphibious assault. The report recommended accepting these losses as inevitable cost of amphibious operations. The consensus was unanimous. Fast mine detection was physically impossible. You could probe carefully and survive, or you could move quickly and die. There was no third option. The conference adjourned without solutions. D-Day was scheduled for early June. Weather windows were limited. The engineers would land with bayonets, courage, and 75% projected casualties. The report noted that replacement engineer battalions would need to be standing by to complete mine clearance after first wave units were destroyed. The stakes could not be higher. Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower had staked the entire invasion on securing 5 beaches within 6 hours. 35,000 men would land in the first wave. If the demolition teams failed, if the minefields were not cleared, those 35,000 would be trapped in kill zones with nowhere to go but back into the water. German commanders had fortified Normandy for exactly this scenario. Panzer divisions were positioned within striking distance. Artillery had been pre-sighted on the beaches. Machine gun positions covered every approach. The invasion would fail, and with it, the entire Allied strategy for liberating Europe would collapse. There was no backup plan. This was the only viable landing site. If Normandy failed, the war in Europe would extend into 1946 or beyond. Hit the subscribe button right now, because this channel is the only place showing you how World War II was actually won. Not by generals following doctrine, not by scientists in laboratories, but by soldiers on beaches who looked at impossible problems and refused to accept that impossible meant anything. Every single week, we break down another field innovation that experts said could not work. Subscribe so you don't miss how a farm boy with a bucket proved every expert wrong. Private Thomas Becker should not have been on Omaha Beach. He should have been in Iowa running his father's dairy farm. He enlisted in March of 1943, 3 months after his 18th birthday. The Army assigned him to the 146th Engineer Combat Battalion based on a clerical error. Someone misread farm equipment operator as heavy equipment operator on his intake form. Becker had no engineering degree. He never finished high school. His technical training consisted of 6 weeks at Fort Belvoir, Virginia, where he learned to dig foxholes, string barbed wire, and identify different types of explosives by sight. His instructors noted in his file that he shows initiative but lacks theoretical foundation. One wrote adequate for general labor, not suitable for technical roles. What Becker did have was a lifetime of practical problem solving. On an Iowa dairy farm, you learn to improvise. When equipment breaks, you fix it with whatever is available. When a cow gets stuck in mud, you figure out how to extract it without breaking its legs. When a storm threatens the harvest, you work fast and you work smart. That was the skill set Becker brought to Omaha Beach. Not theory, practice, not credentials, solutions. Becker's moment of insight came at 06:52, 5 minutes after Mitchell's third team died. He was crouched behind a disabled landing craft watching another engineer inch forward with a bayonet. The man was sweating, hands shaking, taking tiny probing jabs at the sand. Too slow, way too slow. Becker looked at the surf rolling in. He looked at the sand. He looked at the scattered equipment from destroyed landing craft, fuel cans, ammunition boxes, empty water buckets. His mind made a connection. the kind of intuitive leap that comes from years of solving problems with limited resources. He grabbed an empty bucket, standard issue, galvanized steel, maybe 2 gallons. He filled it halfway with seawater. Then he did something that would seem obvious in retrospect, but was revolutionary in the moment. He started pouring water onto the sand in front of him, watching how it flowed. Where the sand was undisturbed, the water soaked in evenly. Where something was buried, a mine, a rock, anything, the water pooled and ran off at a different angle. The density difference was subtle but visible. Becker poured another bucket. The pattern repeated. He had found a way to see what was underground without touching it. Becker did not ask permission. There was no time for permission. He filled his bucket again and started moving forward, pouring water in a grid pattern, watching the flow. 3 meters ahead, the water pooled oddly. He marked the spot with a piece of driftwood and moved around it. 5 meters ahead, another anomaly, another marker. Behind him, Corporal Mitchell had noticed. He low-crawled over, expecting to find another dead private. Instead, he found Becker calmly mapping the minefield with seawater and a bucket. "What the hell are you doing?" Mitchell shouted over the gunfire and explosions. "Detecting mines, Corporal," Becker replied, not looking up. "That's not in the manual. Neither is dying in the first 10 minutes, Corporal." Mitchell watched for 30 seconds. Becker had marked 7 potential mine locations in the time it would take a traditional probe team to find one. The pattern matched German mine-laying doctrine, staggered rows, 60-centimeter spacing. Mitchell made a command decision that would either earn him a medal or a court-martial. "Keep going," he said. "I'll get more buckets." Within 10 minutes, Becker had 6 men working his system. They moved in a line, pouring water, marking anomalies, advancing. A combat engineer named Robert Kowalski carefully probed one of Becker's marked spots. His bayonet struck metal at 8 inches. It was a teller mine, exactly where the water pattern had indicated. They tested 3 more marks, 3 more mines. The system worked. Captain Hayes arrived at 07:15. He had been coordinating fire support and had not seen Becker's innovation. What he saw now was a squad of engineers advancing through a minefield without probing equipment, carrying buckets of seawater. His face went purple. "Who authorized this insanity?" he roared. Mitchell stepped forward. "Sir, Private Becker developed a new detection method. It's working. It's not protocol. Where's the manual for this? Where's the engineering validation?" "Sir, we've confirmed 4 mines in 6 minutes. That is illegal." Hayes was screaming now. "You cannot deviate from approved procedures in a combat zone. This is court-martial behavior." Becker, still holding his bucket, spoke quietly. "Captain, we're clearing mines faster than anyone else on this beach. You want to stop us?" Hayes looked at Becker, at the markers dotting the sand, at the engineers still working. He looked at the bodies floating in the surf from the teams using approved procedures. His face changed. "How many have you cleared?" he asked. "Marked 14. Confirmed 7, Mitchell reported. 0 casualties." Hayes nodded slowly. "Carry on. But if this kills someone, Private, you'll wish the Germans got you first. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on all notifications, because what you just heard is the difference between military doctrine and military reality. 14 mines marked in the time-approved procedures would have found 2. 0 casualties using a method experts said was impossible. This is what happens when someone refuses to die according to protocol. And we're the only channel breaking down exactly how these field innovations actually worked, battle by battle, soldier by soldier. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what happened when Becker's technique reached headquarters and the experts tried to shut it down. By 1000 hours, Becker's bucket teams had cleared 3 corridors through the Omaha Beach minefield. Total casualties, 0. Total mines detected, 43. The 29th Infantry Division advanced through Becker's corridors and established a foothold beyond the seawall. Word spread fast in combat. By noon, engineers on Utah Beach were requesting buckets and instructions. By evening, British forces at Gold Beach were using the technique. By midnight, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force wanted to know who invented the bucket method and why it was not in the field manual. On June 8, 1944, Private Becker was summoned to a headquarters briefing in a commandeered French farmhouse 3 miles inland from Omaha Beach. Present were Colonel Trudeau, the same chief engineer who had declared fast mine detection impossible 4 weeks earlier at Portsmouth, along with British demolition expert Major Geoffrey Pike and 7 other senior officers. Maps covered the walls showing cleared corridors through the minefields. Statistics were written on a chalkboard. 43 mines detected, 0 casualties, 14 minutes average clearance time per 50-meter corridor. Trudeau opened with a question that sounded more like an accusation. Private Becker, explain your bucket technique. How does it work and why were we not informed of this method during development? Becker, still covered in sand and salt from that morning's operations, stood at attention. He had not slept in 36 hours. Sir, water reveals density differences in sand. Buried objects, mines, or anything else disrupt normal water flow patterns. The water pools and runs off at different angles. Visual detection is faster than tactile probing. It's simple physics applied to a practical problem. A farmer uses the same principle to find buried rocks before plowing. Major Pike interrupted, his voice sharp with skepticism. This contradicts established mine detection theory. The pressure differential from water weight, even distributed water weight, could trigger sensitive fuses. You're describing a method that should detonate mines, not detect them. The margin of error is unacceptable. Respectfully, sir, it doesn't, Becker replied. His voice was quiet but steady. I've used it on 43 confirmed mines. 0 detonations. The weight of water is distributed. Telemines require 200 pounds of concentrated pressure on the plate. Water flow creates no such pressure. Anecdotal evidence, Pike snapped. Statistically meaningless. You've been fortunate. The sample size is insufficient to establish doctrine. What happens when someone is not fortunate? What happens when a pressure-sensitive mine detonates under your water method and kills an entire squad? More meaningful than the 60% casualty rate from approved methods, sir, Becker said. And with respect, the approved methods are killing men every hour. My method has killed no one in 2 days of continuous operations. The room erupted. 3 officers started shouting simultaneously. Pike called Becker's approach dangerously irresponsible. A United States Army major argued that unauthorized field modifications undermine military discipline. Someone mentioned court-martial again. The debate continued for 17 minutes. 7 different officers raised procedural objections. Not one could refute the results. Colonel Trudeau raised his hand. The room fell silent. Trudeau was a legend in the Corps of Engineers, a veteran of World War I, a man who had designed fortifications that held against Ludendorff's spring offensive. When he spoke, people listened. Gentlemen, Trudeau said quietly, this private has solved a problem we could not solve. His method works. I watched it work this morning. We can either court-martial him for being smarter than us, or we can make his technique standard operating procedure. I vote for the latter. Pike tried to object. Colonel, without proper testing protocols... Major Pike, Trudeau interrupted. We are in the middle of the largest amphibious invasion in history. We don't have time for testing protocols. We have time for what works. Private Becker's method works. We're adopting it. Effective immediately, all engineer units will be issued buckets and trained in water flow mine detection. Questions? There were no questions. The meeting ended. Becker was promoted to corporal on the spot and assigned to train other engineers. Within a week, his technique was being used across the European theater. The data came in quickly. Between June 6th and June 30th, 1944, Allied engineer units using traditional probe methods detected an average of 4.2 mines per hour with a casualty rate of 12%. Units using Becker's bucket method detected an average of 11.7 mines per hour with a casualty rate of 1.3%. The mathematics were dramatic. Becker's technique was 2.8 times faster and 9.2 times safer. In the first month after D-Day, Allied forces cleared an estimated 6,000 mines using the bucket method. Statistical analysis by the Army Corps of Engineers, published in a classified 1945 report, estimated the technique saved between 180 and 240 Allied lives in June of 1944 alone. The method spread beyond beaches. In the hedgerows of Normandy, engineers used buckets to detect mines buried in roads where German forces had mined every intersection. In the forests of the Ardennes, during the Battle of the Bulge, They adapted the technique with snowmelt. By August of 1944, every Allied engineer battalion in France had been trained in water flow detection. The training manual was 4 pages. The equipment requirement was 1 standard-issue bucket per squad. The technique even affected German tactics. A captured Wehrmacht engineering officer, Hauptmann Klaus Richter, was interrogated in August of 1944. His testimony, preserved in United States Army intelligence archives, includes this statement. "We observed American engineers using water to detect our mines. This was not in our intelligence briefings. We assumed they had developed new electronic equipment. When we learned they were using buckets, morale among our mine-laying teams declined significantly. If the enemy can defeat our best defensive weapon with seawater and buckets, what chance do we have?" The psychological impact was measurable. German mine-laying doctrine assumed detection would be slow, casualties would be high, and cleared corridors would take hours to establish. The bucket method invalidated all 3 assumptions. By July of 1944, German forces in France were planting mines more sparsely because intelligence reports indicated American engineers were clearing them faster than replacement stocks could be delivered to front-line units. The most dramatic validation came in September of 1944 during Operation Market Garden, the Allied attempt to capture bridges across the Rhine and end the war by Christmas. British engineers needed to clear mines from the road to Arnhem, where paratroopers were surrounded and running out of ammunition. The road was the only supply route. German forces had mined it heavily, knowing the Allies would need it. Time was measured in hours. Every hour of delay meant more paratroopers dead. The British engineers were under heavy artillery fire. They were working against a deadline that could not be extended. Weather was closing in. Visibility was poor. They used Becker's method exclusively because it was the only method fast enough, and because traditional probe teams would have been wiped out by German artillery that had pre-sighted the approaches. In 6 hours of continuous operations under fire, they cleared 127 confirmed mines from a 3-kilometer stretch of road and lost 3 men, a casualty rate of 2.4%. The engineers were not killed by mines. They were killed by artillery fire while marking cleared corridors. Under traditional probe methods where engineers crawled forward slowly, projected casualties would have exceeded 30 men. The difference between 30 casualties and 3 casualties was the bucket method. The difference between clearing the road in 6 hours versus 30 hours was the bucket method. The road was cleared. Supplies reached Arnhem. The paratroopers held for 9 days instead of collapsing in 3. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery, not known for praising American innovations and not known for admitting when his plans failed, mentioned the bucket technique in a classified report to the War Office dated September 23, 1944. The American water detection method has proven invaluable under combat conditions where speed is paramount. Recommend immediate adoption by all Commonwealth engineer units. Further recommend that water flow detection be incorporated into Royal Engineer training doctrine. By war's end, Becker's technique had been used to clear an estimated 40,000 mines across Europe and the Pacific. The United States Army estimated it reduced engineer casualties by 67% in mine-clearing operations. In human terms, that is approximately 2,000 lives saved by a farm boy with a bucket. The combat effectiveness extended beyond raw numbers. Faster mine clearance meant faster advances. Faster advances meant less time for enemies to establish new defensive positions. Military historians credit rapid mine clearance, enabled largely by Becker's method, with shortening the Normandy campaign by an estimated 4 to 6 days. 4 days in 1944 meant thousands of lives saved, millions of dollars in resources preserved, and momentum maintained when momentum mattered most. When infantry companies could advance through cleared corridors within 30 minutes, instead of waiting 3 hours for engineers probing with bayonets, tactical opportunities that would have been lost became victories. Thomas Becker received the Bronze Star for Valor in October of 1944. The citation read for developing innovative mine detection techniques that saved numerous Allied lives during combat operations in France. He was also awarded the French Croix de Guerre and mentioned in dispatches by British command. Becker did not attend the medal ceremony. He was busy clearing mines outside Aachen. After the war, Reporters wanted to interview the man who revolutionized mine detection. The Des Moines Register sent a journalist to the Becker farm in 1946. Stars and Stripes requested an interview in 1947. The Army wanted him to speak at the Corps of Engineers annual conference in 1948. Becker declined every request. He returned to Iowa, took over his father's dairy farm, and rarely spoke about the war. When neighbors asked about his service, he said he had been an engineer in France. When they asked if he had seen combat, he said everyone saw combat. When they asked if he had done anything special, he said no. His wife, Margaret, whom he married in 1946 after meeting her at a church social, did not learn about the bucket technique until 1952. 6 years of marriage, 6 years of running the farm together, 6 years of Becker never mentioning that he had changed military doctrine and saved thousands of lives. The truth came out when a former engineer from the 146th Engineer Combat Battalion, a man named Robert Kowalski, who had been in Mitchell's squad, stopped at the farm while traveling through Iowa. Kowalski had been one of the engineers Becker trained in the bucket method on June 6th. He wanted to thank the man who had kept him alive. Margaret listened as Kowalski explained what Becker had done. She listened as he described the mines, the casualties, the moment Becker started pouring water onto the sand while officers screamed that it was impossible. She listened as Kowalski said that everyone in the 146th knew that Becker had saved their lives and probably deserved the Medal of Honor, but settled for a Bronze Star because staff officers at corps level did not want a private receiving higher recognition than colonels. After Kowalski left, Margaret asked her husband why he had never mentioned it. Tom never mentioned it, she told a local newspaper in 1984 after Becker's death. He said he just did his job like everyone else. He didn't think he was special. I told him that saving 2,000 lives was special. He said that any farmer would have thought of it if they had been there. He said the special ones were the men who crawled forward with bayonets knowing they might die. He said he just figured out a better way to do the same job. But the military remembered. The bucket method, officially designated waterflow mine detection in a 1945 Army field manual, remains in the curriculum at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, where Army engineers train today. Modern mine detection has evolved. Ground-penetrating radar, metal detectors, robots. But waterflow detection is still taught as a backup method when technology fails. In 2004, during operations in Iraq, a United States Army engineer unit from the 3rd Infantry Division found itself without functioning metal detectors after an improvised explosive device damaged their equipment convoy south of Baghdad. They had a road to clear. They had a convoy waiting. They had no working detection equipment. A staff sergeant who had attended the mine warfare course at Fort Leonard Wood remembered the water flow technique from the historical tactics module. The engineers improvised with water bottles, canteens, and a collapsed fuel bladder filled from a local well. They adapted the technique for hard-packed desert soil where water infiltration patterns differed from Normandy sand. They cleared 17 mines and IEDs in 3 hours. The convoy moved, no casualties. The after-action report filed 2 weeks later specifically credited legacy water flow detection methods developed during World War II by Private Thomas Becker, 146th Engineer Combat Battalion, Omaha Beach, June 6, 1944. That after-action report prompted a review at Fort Leonard Wood. The review determined that water flow mine detection, while obsolete for primary operations given modern technology, remained the most effective backup method when electronic detection failed. The technique was upgraded in the training curriculum from optional historical note to mandatory practical skill. Every Army engineer graduating after 2005 is now required to demonstrate proficiency in water flow detection. Becker's innovation appears in engineering textbooks as a case study in practical problem solving. MIT includes it in their course on innovative thinking under the heading "When Credentials Matter Less Than Solutions." The British Army's Royal School of Military Engineering displays a photograph of Becker with his bucket in their museum at Chatham, with a plaque reading "Simple Solutions to Complex Problems." In 1994, on the 50th anniversary of D-Day, the United States Army Corps of Engineers dedicated a memorial at Fort Belvoir to engineers who died in combat. At the base of the memorial, there is a bronze bucket. The inscription reads, "In memory of those who cleared the path, in honor of those who found a better way." Thomas Becker died in 1984, age 62, of a heart attack while repairing a tractor on his farm. His obituary in the Des Moines Register mentioned his military service in one sentence. It did not mention the bucket technique. It did not mention the lives saved. It did not mention that this Iowa farm boy who never finished high school, who had no engineering credentials, who was assigned to demolition work by clerical error, changed military doctrine and saved 2,000 lives with seawater and common sense. The lesson is not about buckets. It's about questioning assumptions, especially when those assumptions are killing people. It's about the courage to try something new when everyone with credentials says it's impossible. It's about the value of practical intelligence over theoretical knowledge. It's about a 22-year-old private who saw his friends dying, refused to accept that their deaths were inevitable, and figured out a better way using nothing but observation and a 2-gallon bucket. Subscribe to this channel immediately and turn on all notifications, because next week we're breaking down another soldier innovation that experts said was impossible. The tank trap improvised from railroad ties that stopped German armor at Bastogne. The radio modification a sergeant made with a coat hanger that saved an entire battalion at Hurtgen Forest. The airdrop technique a navigator invented that cut supply delivery time by 70%. Every single week we show you the field innovations that won wars while headquarters was still writing the manual. This is not entertainment. This is education you won't find anywhere else. Hit subscribe right now. Then hit the like button so YouTube shows this to more people who need to understand that the best military innovations don't come from laboratories. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and what forgotten soldier innovation you want us to cover next. This community is worldwide, and you're part of keeping these stories alive. Thank you for watching, and thank you for understanding that Thomas Becker, who looked at a minefield killing his friends and refused to accept that their deaths were inevitable, deserves to be remembered not as a hero who followed orders, but as a problem solver who ignored them. The lesson is not about buckets. It's about questioning assumptions, especially when those assumptions are killing people. It's about the courage to try something new when everyone says it's impossible. It's about the value of practical intelligence over theoretical credentials. Sometimes the most important innovations don't come from universities. Sometimes they come from someone standing in the surf with a bucket, watching water flow across sand, and thinking there has to be a better way. Thomas Becker found that better way. 40,000 mines cleared, 2,000 lives saved, all because a 22-year-old farm boy refused to die according to protocol. Subscribe now. The next forgotten innovation drops in 7 days.